Yep.
Okay. Everybody that gets out of bed in the morning and goes to work would like to see just a little bit more of this in your paycheck at the end of the week. But what if that little bit extra on your paycheck at the end of the week costs you more in the long run? Okay. Everybody in this room knows somebody at their job that makes $9 an hour or less. The workers are out there. Everybody knows somebody. Earlier this week, voters approved an initiative in the state of Nebraska to increase the minimum wage from $7.25 per hour up to $9 per hour. The research that I've done for this speech in the past indicated there are some possible negative outcomes from raising that minimum wage from $7.25 per hour up to $9 per hour. And that's what I'd like to discuss with you today. First, we're going to discuss a little bit about where the minimum wage came from, how we got to the point that we're at today. Okay? Minimum wage goes back about 75 years. Actually, in a 2013 article, Minimum Wage Overview in the Congressional Digest, the Fair Labor and Standards Act was enacted in 1938 as part of FDR's New Deal recovery economic program to re-stimulate the economy coming out of the Depression. Actually, the original federal minimum wage was actually 25 cents per hour. It was necessary at that time because certain manufacturers were driving down the cost of labor so low so that they could outcompete other manufacturers in the area. And people were so hard up for jobs, they really didn't have a choice. So to compete with these, wage suppressors, other manufacturers had to follow suit. And so the federal government stepped in and said, we've got to set a bar, you have to pay at least this much. Okay. Nebraska statutes for 2014 from the Nebraska Department of Labor website actually lists the Nebraska Wage and Hour Act as enacted in 1967. That act actually established the Nebraska state minimum wage, which is generally the same as the federal minimum wage, and up until, this coming January 1st, the Nebraska minimum wage has never been higher than the federal minimum wage, which is still at $7.25 for the foreseeable future. Okay. So now that we've taken a look at the history, let's take a look at a little bit of information about who this change is going to affect. It's actually a relatively small portion of the workers. If this represents all of the hourly workers in the United States, only about 4% of all the hourly workers earn at or below the federal minimum wage. Okay? It's really not a very big amount. Half of that 4% are young people between the ages of 16 and 25. Generally speaking, the lowest skilled workers and also with the least amount of experience are going to earn those lower wages. In Nebraska, there's about 29,000 minimum wage workers that are roughly the same percentage-wise. Teenagers, about 1 in every 5 teens that has a job works minimum wage. And that's full-time, part-time, doesn't matter. About 1 in every 5 teenagers that works earns a minimum wage. Now, there's a lot of talk about the minimum wage helping those that are poor, helping those people that are in poverty. In a 2010 article called Minimum Wages and Poverty from Joseph Sabia and Richard Burkhauser, their research concluded that only roughly 11% of those that make minimum wage or below come from houses living below the poverty level. So only 4% of those that make hourly wage earn minimum wage, and only 11% of that 4% are actually living below poverty. It's a relatively small number. Okay. Generally, those that kind of represent the bulk of this pie are teenagers that are still living with their parents, or they're second earners, or they have a primary earner in the house, and they're working a part-time job, whether it be for something to do or to earn extra income, but they're not the primary earners in their homes. Why this topic has been so popular lately? It's a very charged political topic. The media loves it. They're going to continue to put it up. Biggest reason? Things like this, because this sells newspapers. This sells TV time. Images of fast food workers striking, demanding $15 per hour for flipping hamburgers. Part of what stimulated this was President Obama, in his 2014 State of the Union address, called on the nation to raise the minimum wage to $10.10 per hour. very aggressive. There's actually no states that currently have a $10 per hour minimum wage. Washington is headed that direction. California is probably shortly thereafter. Eric Whitaker published in a 2012 article in the Policy Studies Journal called The Detriments of Policy Introduction and Bill Adoption, and really outlines why politicians really hammer away at minimum wage. And it's a vote getter. No one wants to come out as their political campaign and say, I'm against poor people making more money. That's political suicide. Nobody wants to be that guy. So there's very little public opposition to minimum wage, even though there can be some very detrimental economic effects from raising the minimum wage. So we've looked at how we got the minimum wage, who's affected, and why this is so popular. So let's take a look at some of these negative side effects that may come up as part of this minimum wage. In a 2012 article, How Does a Federal Minimum Wage Affect Aggregate Household Spending? Daniel Aronson and Eric French, their research shows that increases in the minimum wage will absolutely increase the cost of production while not increasing production itself. So you're putting more money into it to make the exact same parts. Economically, that just doesn't work. Those costs have to come from somewhere. Those costs are generally going to be reduced hours or reduced employees at jobs. Labor costs are going to reduce job pools. The people that are going to be most affected by those job pools are going to be those lowest skilled workers. The 16 to 25-year-olds, especially the teenagers, are going to find it the hardest to find jobs. Because not only are they the lowest skilled workers with the least amount of experience, with less jobs, they're going to have more competition from other low-skilled workers, those in maybe the 21 to 25-year range. Of the employees that are left, if there are layoffs, they're still required to do the same amount of work. You're going to have increased workload on those employees that are left. It's part of economics. So, rising prices, consumer goods. If you increase the cost of production, you're going to increase the cost of the finished product. The supply and demand, rules of supply and demand that dictate everything economics, indicates that as prices rise, demand will fall. So it's a double-edged sword. They have to increase their prices on consumer goods to make it for the increased labor cost, but by driving up their prices, they are driving down demand for those products. So, a couple things that also might come up. New technologies. New technology is great. Unfortunately, new technology may cost these companies a significant amount of money. New technology may also replace even more employees. And we might see kiosks at restaurants for ordering. And who doesn't love the self-checkout stands at Walmart? 8 checkouts that are open 24 hours a day. They require one person to watch them, and they never call in sick. Came at a very significant cost, but every single day that those checkouts are open saves Walmart money. And people think it's a great deal because they're moving through the lines faster, and they don't have to wait for a cashier. Great for the consumer, great for Walmart, bad for employment. But that's what new technology can lead to. Some other negatives, wage increases may be negated by the increased consumer cost. I talked about everybody wants a bigger paycheck. If consumer spending goes up, all of that gain that you just made from a higher salary goes away because you're spending it on higher priced goods. And all those people that make above $9 per hour right now, they're not going to see a bigger paycheck, but they're going to see those higher prices at the store. They're going to be faced with less off or worse off than when they started. 2014, in a 2014 article in the State Legislators Journal, Maximum Divide on Minimum Wage, Jeannie Mazur indicates that with less money coming in to these suppliers, because of their increased production cost, it will most definitely hurt job creation. So it isn't just a matter of people being laid off, it's going to stymie the economy and it's going to stymie new jobs being created. Okay? So I've shown why this debate is a very complicated one. It's very politically charged, but also why you don't hear much said against raising the minimum wage, because nobody wants to be that guy as a politician. Hopefully you have a better understanding of where the minimum wage comes from, how we got to where we're at today, who the minimum wage mostly affects, and what things we might see in the future. Time will tell with this current initiative here in Nebraska and in other states that are doing something similar are going to have that effect of bigger paychecks, but ending up worse off in the end. Thank you.